Hi, this is a little update on the week 7 assignments for English 090. So, we were not able to have our Zoom meeting, so instead of doing that, I'm going to create this little video to try to walk you through what you're doing for week 7. And I have adjusted the week 7 assignments, so you're not doing quite as much as I initially posted. So you're still going to read the Mike Rose article, Why Teaching Kids to Have Grit Isn't Always a Good Thing. And there is a link here. Actually, let me just go up to the changes because here I've just got the 4 things you need to do. So you can just really focus right here. So there's a link here that will take you to the page in our class that has the article. So you'll have to scroll down a little bit and then you'll see the article by Mike Rose. So you're going to need to read this article. If you would like to annotate it, which you may very well want to do, remember that you'll have to make a copy of it or download it as a Word document because the one that's here requires edit access and you won't have that. So this gives you a different perspective on grit from the other article that you read and from the video that you watched or the TED Talk that you watched. This one has got a little bit of criticism about grit. So we want to look at multiple perspectives when we're investigating an issue. So you understand now what grit is, you understand why it's helpful for student success. And now you're going to look at why teaching kids to have grit maybe isn't always a good thing. So you're going to read through this article. The part that we're not doing this week that I had planned for you to do was to finish your group project, where we were pulling out purpose, tone, fact, opinion, that kind of thing. I'm just going to skip that this week because of the confusion since we didn't have our Zoom meeting. So you're going to read that article about grit, think about this whole issue of grit, where you stand on it and what you think about it. All right, the next thing you're going to do is read the materials in our class on how to write a response paragraph. And the link is right here. So you're going to read through this entire page, if you will, or web page. So go through, read through. There's some videos, a little bit about how to start a response paragraph. It has a model here, which will be very, very helpful when you are filling out your planner. Talks about how you cite when you are writing a response. This is very important that you read that information. Gives you examples, another little video, and then how to explain after you've cited some information, a little bit about transitions, a good example, and then how to conclude your response paragraph. There's also samples here. One is color-coded to show you all the different elements of it. And again, another sort of list of what your response paragraph should look like. So this is really important for you to read. So take the time to go through all of these materials. Okay, once you've done that, then you're ready to look at the specific assignment for Unit 2, which is the response paragraph. So you will have a video you can listen to, or you can read what the task is, which basically is to decide where you stand on this issue of grit. Do you think grit is a real thing and a good thing, and we need to get students to develop more grit so that they can be successful? Or do you feel that maybe grit is overblown or maybe not as important, or there are other factors that are more important than grit. Or perhaps we're just putting too much pressure on students by asking them to be gritty. So here's your writing prompt. Is grit important? Why or why not? Now, this is a response, so you're going to choose one of the two articles that you read. We're not basing it on the TED Talk. It's either the Angela, the one by Hanford, or the one by Rose, Mike Rose. And so they're listed here. Pick one of them. Pick the one that's closest to what you believe. So if you do think grit is important, I would pick the one by Hanford. And if you think maybe it's not so important, then maybe you would use the one by Rose. Okay, so you're going to use one article plus your own ideas to weigh in on this issue. A little bit about the requirements and the format, but this is what you're going to do this week. Fill out the planner. I have it in both a Google Doc and a Word doc. If you go to the announcement link, the link for the planner is the Word doc. So you can also find it if you go into that Unit 2 materials if you want the Google Doc. All right, so this is the kind of structure of your paragraph. Other than the topic sentence, you do not have to use complete sentences. This is just sort of the bare bones, the skeleton of your paragraph. So put your name up here at the top, and then give your paragraph a title. It should not be the article title. It should be your title. You know, get grit, maybe. Or grit, who cares? Or I don't know, don't be flippant, but anyway, figure out a title. It could just be response paragraph, but maybe be a little more creative. The first sentence of your response paragraph has to identify the article and what it said and your point. So use this model to formulate your sentence. And again, when you read how to write a response paragraph, you'll learn a little bit more about that. So here you'll type out the full paragraph. Again, you can see the model here that you should follow. All right, that will include your overall point, which is grit is important or maybe not so important. Depending on what you say, you will create 3 supporting reasons. If you say grit is important, then your major supporting details will be reasons why. So look at the article, think about your own ideas about this issue, and come up with 3 ideas. You're not just taking from the article. So these ideas can come from the article, but they don't and probably shouldn't be the same order and the exact same things the article said. This is your paragraph, not just retelling the article. So think a little bit about this and come up with your reasons. Make sure they're distinct reasons so they don't overlap. Don't just say the same thing 3 times. All right, so that's the first thing to do, is really fill in these 3 major details. So think about that. Try to come up with things that you think are the best reasons why we need to be gritty, or the reasons that you think grit maybe isn't so important. Okay, so you'll fill those in first and write down your idea beside each of those. Then go back to each one and give some more information. So if you said grit will make students get better grades, all right, how do you know that? Find some things from both the article and maybe your own experiences. You know, when you studied more, or you didn't give up, or you failed a test, but then you really worked hard, you know, did you end up being more successful and get better grades? So There's two numbers here. You should have at least two details, one from the text, one from your own experiences. If you can't get both of those for all three major supporting details, you'll be okay, but you want to try to support what you're saying both with the article and with your own ideas. Things that you get from the article, if you quote them, in other words, if you copy them word for word, please put quotation marks around that material so that you don't accidentally plagiarize. You don't have to copy though. You can paraphrase, which is what you did when you were summarizing. So that means you use your own words to explain what you saw in the article. And in that case, you do not use the quotation marks. Okay? When you're writing this down, let me know what's coming from the article. So you could do article, and then you could say, 94% of students who, had grit got better grades. That's not from the article, but anyway, something like that. So I'm paraphrasing it. If you're quoting it, if this was copied, then again, make sure that you put the quotation marks around that material. All right, and then here, when I took a math the second time, got an A. Okay, so information from the text and information from your own experiences. Try to do that for each of your 3 points. Okay, then you'll move on to the second reason you think grit is important or not so important. And then the third detail, why again is grit important, or maybe why is grit overhyped, not quite so important. All right, if you have more than 2 points that you want to put in here, feel free to add to it. You can certainly add another number and put some more information. So I guess I should say article. Just let me know which information is coming from the article, and I will assume the other part is your own experiences. All right, and then when you're done with that, then you have the conclusion. The conclusion should sort of recap what you said, put it all in a nutshell, and kind of give the so what. So if you think grit is really important, probably the so what is that maybe more students can be more successful in school. If you think that maybe grit is overblown, or maybe it's not quite accurate, or there's other things that are more important, then you would recap that and show why that's important to understand. No new information here. You would not be quoting from the article or even paraphrasing new things from the article. This should just be drawing from what you've already done. And basically re-emphasize your thesis statement, which is your point. Is grit important or is it not? Okay, so when you're done filling that in, then you will submit that this week. So hopefully by Sunday, the 18th, I think it is, you'll go to this link and you'll be able to, let me do this as a student so you can see it a little better. Click on the link for the submission folder and you can add your file. And again, I've put all these links right here. The week 7 reminds you that everything is due October 18. We're basically doing everything except we're not going to do that group work. I just don't want to add anything more to you since we had a little bit of confusion. Okay, and then I am going to add a Zoom meeting on Thursday. It's optional, but if you can participate at 8:30 a.m. on Thursday, October 15, I'll be happy to meet with you, answer any questions, and try to clarify anything. All right, hopefully that will be helpful to you as you're working on this assignment.